Good morning, gardening friends. Welcome to part 3 of this saga. I do apologize. I thought it was going to be kind of a quicker thing, but sometimes projects get a little bit bigger than you thought they were going to be. So this is where we kind of left off at the end of part 2. I hadn't put the blocks up there, but they're mainly up there just so that they're not, they were sitting on the driveway. I just needed a place to store them temporarily, and I needed to kind of clean that area up. So they are up there loosely. I need to really set them in properly. I did a little bit of shaping, and ultimately you can kind of see where I am. I also took some of the other pavers, stepping stones. That's if you happen to be looking this stuff up at your local big box hardware store. They call them stepping stones. And I put those in. I don't think those are going to be the final. I had to think about it last night. There's that gap between the ones that are already in and those which are just sitting there. And then when you get to this end, I've got this problem where I've got the sprinkler head pipe sticking out. I don't want to relocate it. That's a bit of work. It could be done. But what I did in the past was I just kind of moved that one stepping stone forward. So with that in mind, and with the fact that there's another little gap here that I need to account for, ultimately I sat down and kind of mapped it out, and that's what this is here. And it looks like my plan's pretty much going to work, but actually there might be a little extra space, or it might be tight in spots. I did that sort of cross symbol not to represent anything, but just because I need to put extra bricks in, and I was trying to figure out how to make it kind of symmetrical, and that was about the only way I could really do it. If you look carefully, I don't know how well it's going to come out, but there's 3 stepping stones on the left, 3 on the right, and same top and bottom, except there's a bit of shifting going on. That first shift has to be because of the sprinkler head, and the other one was just to make it symmetrical. So ultimately I got to go out and get all of those blocks. They're basically going to be concrete bricks because they're a predictable size, and that's pretty much all this is just concrete. It's just, in some cases it's colored. I don't think I'm using these. I'm going to move these to another part of the side yard. Ultimately I've got to kind of shift things around. I mean, I've still got a couple of blocks sitting over there. So I've got to just kind of stack a bunch of stuff out of the way, get this done, and then move a bunch of stuff over here that's not going to be what's going to be here, but so that I can ultimately work on this whole mess over here. That's the next area that needs to be addressed, and that's where I stole a couple of those blocks from. You can kind of see where I stole the slump stone from, that I had a couple of them in there. And then I've got all my little lights and everything. I got to figure out what to do with all of that. So there's a lot of work here. But I think I've got kind of a parts list. I came out. That's why I've got the tape measure sitting here next to my map. I was just confirming that my idea would work. And I think it will, with a little bit of fiddly adjustment. So I'm going to go pick up parts now. Okay, I've picked up the parts. And now it's time to get serious. I think I'm just going to do a little montage here, show you some pictures of my progress along the way. And ultimately the plan is, first I'm going to remove those loose ones. Then I'm going to actually excavate and pull out the ones closer to the wall. Then I'm going to just sort of excavate and start placing everything in according to the plan, which I've got sitting over on the side there. And I'll come back if anything important happens, or if I'm done. Well, of course, I'm going to run into a problem. Measure twice, cut once, measure 3 times, measure 4 times. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Here's what's going on. We've got a part of the irrigation piping running right along here. And so it limits how high I can make something. The bricks I bought are too tall. I've got one sitting there. It would sit that proud of the wall, the edge of the wall there, whereas these stepping stones are fine. They're the right height to just fit in there. Even if they're up just a hair, it's not a big problem. But then the other problem was part of the plan involved having one stepping stone against the retaining wall and one against, well, actually the other retaining wall. One against each and a brick in between. And the idea I had was I was going to take this brick and lay it down, but I don't know how easy this is going to be to show, but I'm off by like 1/8 of an inch. The only way I could sort of accommodate that really would be to tear the entire retaining wall down and move it back 1/8, probably 1/4 of an inch. And I kind of thought I had done that when I measured everything out yesterday and set all this up. So I don't want to tear the whole thing down and start over. That's too much. So I think at this point the plan is going to be that I'm going to take these bricks and I'm going to lay them like this, and you can see there's a gap on either side, and I can really kind of fudge it a little bit. I can have a gap between this stepping stone and the back wall, a gap between here and the brick, between the brick and that one, and between that one and that wall. Just little gaps, and it'll look like a grout line. It'll just be dirt. And then as far as the areas over here, which on the plan, this is right here, I was doing that just to be symmetrical, but I don't think that's going to work. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is sliding the two stepping stones back and just filling this in with soil and packing it in good and hard, because I'm going to have to do the same thing on the other side to accommodate this irrigation pipe, because this is coming in and teeing and coming up to the sprinkler head, which then sprays out to the hill. So I can't remove the sprinkler head. I could, in theory, do something to try and relocate this back that way or move it further down that way. There are various different options, but most of them involve coming up and then back down, in which case I'm still going to have something sticking up here, and I can't fit a brick or a stepping stone in there. So that's the problem. Ultimately, I think the solution is going to be to lay these bricks sideways like this. If I really got, desperate, I could do them like that. I could really dig down and stick them in there, what they call soldiers, but I don't think I'm going to go quite that far. So I'm going to go that far. I'll still get, I think, most of that cross in there. I'm hoping. I've actually got to lay some of these stepping stones across from right to left, or left to right, depending on, but I basically decided to start in this corner. I also discovered that this is not perfectly square, that corner, so I'm going to have to fix that, but that's a smaller adjustment. I don't have to tear apart the entire wall. I'm going to have to lay them going across in order to figure out if I've got the room to do the vertical part of this. If not, then I'm just going to have to make that up with the grout lines, like I was saying. It's not a big deal to have some soil in there as grout lines. The only problem with that is that we've got weeds that grow around here like crazy. Let's see if I can sort of show you, a patch. That's the grass that's growing. That's driving us crazy. We didn't plant it. It just blows in on the wind and grows very quickly. So we need to figure out how to get rid of that. So back to the montage. Okay, well, once again, I've gotten to a certain point and I'm pretty wiped out. And if I'm being smart, I should leave. I haven't done the top caps. I haven't reset them like I just reset everything down here. If I'm being smart, I'll leave that for tomorrow. There's a couple other things I need to do and clean up because the sprinkler's going to go off tomorrow morning. But Yeah. So I know I thought this was going to be short, and I know I keep saying that, but here we are. I guess I'm going to wrap up part 3, and I guess we'll do part 4 tomorrow, and we'll see if there's a 5. Um, Ultimately, I'm trying to keep these videos from becoming exceedingly long, like I've done in the past, where I end up with like a half hour of video. I would rather have 3 parts at 5 minutes, or 5 parts at 5 minutes, than to have one really long video, and people can just sort of judge whether they want to keep watching or not. So I need to also think about some other things, like I ended up pulling one of the pavers out that was there. You know, I keep calling them pavers. I mean stepping stones. I think you all know what I mean. I had to pull one out of there, so I've got one more that could go back in here somehow. It doesn't. I'd actually already done this whole area, and didn't quite fit with what we've got here. So I have to figure out what to do. I've got to do some thinking. That I can do while I'm recuperating. So I guess that's it for today. This is the Budget Gardener signing off, saying may your thumb be green.